These past few months, we've had a lot of guests on this show. We've had celebrity guests, we've had politicians, we've had some sports figures on the show. But actually my favorite part of the show is when we have you guys on the show. And it's amazing the perspective that you all give me from around the country and the opinions that you bring to the show. And I love hearing them. So for this week's show, I wanted to do something fun, and I wanted to bring back some of my favorite callers.
I don't want to share someone else's thoughts. I want to create my own original thoughts. I want to create my own original solutions. I want to look at situations and come up with my own phrasing, my own words, and do it my way.
This is the Jon Taffer Podcast.
Shut it down!
Well, hello from Beaufort, Georgia. Oh, here I am, sitting in my bus as I was last week. I've now been away from home here for 5 weeks, and I've been completely safe, actually. Have not exposed myself, worn a mask when I'm supposed to, maintained social distancing when I'm supposed to. So it's been an amazing 5 weeks, and I'm excited about this show. I always love talking to you guys. And we assembled some of my favorite calls this week that we've ever had. And I'm going to sort of play them and talk about them a little bit, but there's a lot of unbelievable stuff that you guys have said to me these past couple of years. So we have a few of our better calls. So we're going to do that today. But I got to tell you, I have fallen in love with the state of Georgia these past 5 weeks. And I can say it for my wife, Nicole, as well. We're here in the Lake Lanier area. And it's just, I got to tell you, it's beautiful. The weather's unbelievable. The people are fantastic. It's just an unbelievable state. And I have developed an amazing love affair to the point that we've even looked at some lake houses or something possibly there. So it's amazing when you go to a place and you stay as long as we've had to. And we've had some delays opening Taffer's Tavern that are COVID-related delays. And it's amazing when you open a restaurant like we are. It's a pretty sophisticated restaurant, so there's fabricated custom booths and custom chairs and custom bar stools, and the bar has to be built, and all the stainless steel and the fabricated corners and all the ledges, and all the electrical needs to be placed, and the plumbing needs to be placed, and you're ordering what we call FF&E, and FF&E in essence is furniture, fixtures, and equipment, and there's, gosh, I couldn't even guess, maybe over 100 pieces when you get from a knife to a chair and everything in the middle, TVs, technology, speakers, furniture, all that stuff. So during COVID, it's not so easy to get your hands on 80 chairs or 120 chairs. And we're finding that there are factories that are shut down, weeks behind, not even taking new orders in many cases. But many of these factories are running 2, 3, 4 weeks late. So our booths are made actually in the state of Missouri, custom made, and there's wood and there's metal and there's glass and there's all of these special elements to it. And due to COVID and shutdowns, they're weeks late. So a big thank you to we've hired about 100 employees. We're running a week or 10 days late of opening because of the delays in our FF&E. But man, we're there. So watch my social media, because for the first time ever, we're going to start issuing photographs and press releases, and there's a lot of amazing information coming out. And I've got to tell you, I've done a lot of things in my life, from seltzers to mixers to TV shows to opening nightclubs and restaurants. But I can't think of anything that I'm more proud of than what we've done in Taffer's Tavern, from the food to the kitchen designs to the front of the house design. And when customers walk through the front door, man, I can't wait to see the look on their faces, because they're all going to be really surprised. And, you know, it's funny, when I do bar rescue, that's always my favorite part of bar rescue. When I do bar rescue, and you don't get to see this, of course, on the TV show, when I say, ready, 1, 2, 3, and they all turn around and they all get excited, and maybe I give them a hug. It all depends, you know, how I feel in our relationship, etc. And then when I say to them, okay, you guys ready to see it? Yes, go ahead. Well, when I say go ahead, and they start heading to the front door, I run like hell to the production trailer so I can see the looks on their faces when they go through the front door. I love that. That's like my favorite moment. And I can't wait to see the look on everybody's faces when they walk through the front door at Taffer's Tavern in Alpharetta, Georgia, which is now only, I'm guessing, don't hold me to exact days, but it's about 10 days away. maybe 12 days away, so it's pretty darn exciting. It's also fun to see people on the street trying to peek through the door and seeing what they can look at, and it reminds me years ago of those construction sites, and they had the hole in the wall, remember the wood along the street, and you look in a little hole in the wall, and you could see what they were building. Well, we didn't put a hole in the wall on purpose, so it's been really top secret. So some people have snuck through the front door, but nobody's really seen it. So watch my social media next week. You're going to see a lot of information on Taffer's Tavern. Also, we're on a roll in Georgia because Taffer's Seltzer debuts in Georgia. I believe the product all arrived this week to RNDC, our distributor. Thank you to RNDC for distributing our products. So it's going to be in Georgia, and over the next few weeks, you'll start to see it in liquor stores and convenience stores, and you'll start to see it all over the state. So we're really excited about that. So it's funny how things work out, Corey. It's sort of been like Georgia week, Georgia month, I should say, around the world of Taffer. But, it's interesting watching now they're saying masks don't matter. Masks do matter. And it's so frustrating that here we are now. For me, my life changed on March 13th. So we got April, May, June, July, August, September, October. We're soon into November. It's been months, and we still can't get a straight answer of does a mask work or does it not? Well, here's my thought. If I'm going to talk to you and I'm infected and I wear a mask, it's going to at least slow down the velocity of my particles. And I'm guessing if we slow down the velocity, we slow down how far it travels. So me, I figured to hell with it. I'd rather just wear the darn thing than take the chance. So I have, and I've gotten sort of used to it. It's also when you wear a mask all day long, you learn about the value of a breath mint when you're breathing your own breath all day long, and you wear that frickin' mask all day long, but it's worth it. And I do encourage us all to do that. And what do you think of politics today? And, today was a big day. A lot of news came out about one of the two candidates, and I'm not going to get political here, and Europe and China, and boy, if it's real, it's pretty ugly. But, I find it interesting how politics now is strictly market research driven. And the speeches are tailored to each demographic and each geographic region. And, it's a battle of the marketing experts. And it's fascinating to watch. Joe Biden is a candidate, and I'm not making an opinion one way or another in this broadcast, but looking at Joe Biden, he's been extremely disciplined. He goes inside when he should. He backs out when he's ahead in the polls. Why take a chance and do anything? He comes forward when he needs to. He says what he should. He doesn't say what he shouldn't. He stays on a teleprompter. He doesn't get off and get him. It's fascinating to watch the discipline on that side. And the VP candidate has been really staying away from the media for whatever reason. I guess they're determining that that's not an asset to do that, to bring her forward now. But all of it is all market research driven. And, this poll and that poll. And so when you see them both going to Pennsylvania, that should tell you something, right? Because they wouldn't take the risk if there wasn't a reason to take the risk. But it's all so calculated. And then you look at the other side and the president and how undisciplined actually he is, and how tweets and things that he says and going off message is so impactful to his image and his race. And it's interesting to me, when you look at the numbers, lowest unemployed, income up, blah, 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 one could argue that President Trump could have a good story to tell. But, today he was talking about a hoax that bin Laden wasn't exactly dead. So there's a real lesson in this for all of us. We win when we stay on message, when we have a purpose. We lose when we start to freeball and lose our purpose, lose our messaging. I've learned that as a speaker. I've learned that here doing this podcast. I've learned it doing my television show, that I got to stay on message. I've got to have a purpose in what I'm doing. When we lose message, identification gets muddy. Messaging obviously gets muddy. People don't know what to attach to. We got to have something to hang our hat to. And both campaigns have to give us that on either side. So if you're going to vote for Joe Biden, then Joe Biden's got to give you something to hang your hat on so that you, within your own brain, can say, I am voting for Joe Biden because of X. That's your hook. That's where you're going to hang your hat. And the other side has to do exactly the same thing. I'm going to vote for President Trump because of X, and that's where I'm going to hang my hat. And I find it interesting that in this election, and I was reading some polling information the other day, and again, I'm being non-political, is that in many cases, most people are voting not for the person they want to vote for, but for the person they want to vote against. And man, that sort of sucks, doesn't it? So when you think about the statistics and the numbers and the fact that people are really voting to make the opposition lose, not that they're so excited about what they win, is sort of a bummer. I was hoping we'd be in a better place. But the good news is, I think that we are close to an end of COVID, and Dr. Fauci, a few days ago, about a week ago, made a comment that we'll have 700 million doses of 3 different types of vaccines by April. Now, what he didn't say was, how many would we have before April? I mean, do we have none in March? Or did they all hit April 1st? Or do we have 600 million in March? And do we have 500 million maybe in February? And how many do we have in January? And do we have any in December? What about that? So nobody has quite talked about that. And it all seems so secretive. But here's what I think. I'm going to stick my neck out. I believe we will have at least one of the options of vaccines available before the end of the year, possibly by the end of November. And then that's 100 million doses coming pretty quickly. And then we'll start to see them flow pretty quickly after that. So I do believe we're coming out of this thing. And that's pretty exciting. So there's things to talk about now. And you know, we need to start thinking about how we reopen, how we start to organize ourselves. And I'll tell you this, when I get a vaccine, I'm going back to exactly the way I used to be. And I'm going to guess a lot of you are too. And my wife, Nicole, always tells me, John, everybody's going to come back just the way they are. And my chief of staff tells me the same thing. And my team and everybody around me says, but I'm a little hesitant to say that because maybe I'm a little older. And maybe I don't quite have the risk-taking that maybe I had a few years ago. But who knows? The point is this. I believe it now myself. So if we are going to get a vaccine and we are going to go back to normal, then start saving your money because you want to have some money to party when we go back out there. Let's hope that things get organized. Our government pulls things together. The next relief package is done. I'm a big believer in the PPP plan. I think it really helped businesses keep employees on the payroll and kept us moving forward. I'm a big believer in providing relief now for people who need it, who have lost their jobs. I'm a big believer in bridging us to the spring. And if we can bridge us to the spring, which means enhance the unemployment benefits to spring, get the PPP plan, not to the end of the year, but to spring, and just bridge us to spring, boy, I think we're all going to come back pretty quickly then. So these past few months, we've had a lot of guests on this show. We've had celebrity guests, we've had politicians, we've had some sports figures on the show. But actually my favorite part of the show is when we have you guys on the show. And it's amazing the perspective that you all give me from around the country and the opinions that you bring to the show. And I love hearing them. So for this week's show, I wanted to do something fun, and I wanted to bring back some of my favorite callers. And this might be the top caller that we've had in the past few months, maybe post-COVID, is our maybe most popular caller with regard to comments online and just phone calls and reactions from listeners. And his name is Nick. And if you remember, Nick was a Homeland Security and an Emergency Management master's degree student. And man, it was an incredible conversation. So let's listen to what Nick had to say.
Hello?
Nick, Jon Taffer here.
Hey, John, how are you?
Good. Nice to talk to you, buddy. Can I call you Nick?
Me? Yes, absolutely. Can I call you John?
You can, absolutely, buddy. So you know, your call was really fascinating to me. I must tell you, I don't think I have. Now, I've spoken to many FBI agents, governments, people, congressmen, senators. I've spoken to a lot of people, but I have never spoken to, I don't think, someone who has a Homeland Security and Emergency Management master's degree. So hats off. You picked a very timely profession, didn't you, Nick?
Apparently, I didn't really think I'd be using it in the private sector, but it's actually very applicable to what's going on right now. And it's really been great, and it's been able to help a lot of people.
It is. So you actually have a company in the private sector. So you're not working for government right now. You have your own company. Is that what you're doing?
Yes. So I was actually completing my master's degree. And in January, all of the courses switched over to being pandemic related. And so my thesis was on COVID-19 threat mitigation. and I'm working on it with a team of 9 other people. But my area specifically was threat mitigation in the private and public sector. And basically, one of my friends who owned a beach club where I live in Long Beach, New York. And he asked me, he said, "Can you help me figure out a way to operate?" And I said, "Sure, I'd love to." And it really exploded from there. And I have more people calling me than I can keep up with even right now. But it's so great working with these people and, just telling them that there is a way to find a solution right now, because all of them are just heartbroken and they're not sure how to adapt. And I'm like, there is a way and I can help you.
Wow, that's really powerful. And what's interesting as a business owner, Nick, I find it fascinating how we were told how surface contamination can be a terrible thing. And then, the WHO, I'm sure you probably saw this a few days ago, said, no, surface contamination, and now they're backtracking saying, no, we didn't mean it that way. I mean, so the amount of information that we're getting is so conflicting that as a business owner, we don't always know what to do. So you solved that for us.
Yeah, that's exactly what I'm doing. And exactly like what you said, it's so frustrating to these business owners where they have so much on their plate just trying to get their operations back to normal. And they don't have time to sift through all this information. And so, I had the foundation. I spent over 1,000 hours looking into this from start to finish. And now as new guidelines come out, even though a lot of them are conflicting, as you mentioned, I'm basically just adding that to my baseline knowledge and I'm helping them navigate it. And it's the most frustrating thing has been when the public health concern does not equate to the government mandate. People are always like, can you get my building safe? And I'm like, absolutely. This is how we're going to do it. We're going to make procedural changes to your operations. We're going to do some workplace changes to your operations. Mm-hmm. I'm going to meet you at whatever budget you need to be at. And I'm going to help you and I'm going to get you safe. But then when they ask me, when can I open? I always have to say, look, these are the government guidelines in New York State right now. I can get you safe. I can absolutely get you safe. But, I have to go by the government guidelines so that they're not opening too soon. And it's unfortunate for them because I tell them, look, you're safe right now. You could have guests in here. Your risk is very, very low. But you still have to wait until New York State gives you the okay to go.
Yeah. And there's been a real conflict. And I've been speaking about on this podcast. I find it incredibly frustrating that one state can have such a different mandate from another state. It's almost like it's a different illness, but it isn't. It's the same damn illness, right? And the cross-contamination is the same. So I find it incredible how one state's numbers can be lower than another state that enacts more policies. And I get density is a part of it, certainly, and even ambient temperature can be a part of it. I get that. But Nick, I got a question that's burning to ask you.
Sure.
When you were in school and you were preparing for all this, obviously you went through terrorism and international threats and domestic threats and cells and understanding emergency management with regard to hurricanes and natural disasters. And you went through all of this training. And how many years were you in school?
John, so this was supposed to be a 2-year program. And I actually devoted myself to this. I'm actually not even done. I'm finishing in August.
So 2 years. So let me go somewhere with you, Nick. So 2 years of this program, and then you told me that in January everything shifted, and they started focusing on pandemic and COVID and what we can do about that. Here's my question for you: did they talk about pandemic, or did they train you in this? Was there any discussion in this before it actually happened?
This is really interesting. So the way Homeland Security looks at everything, and what I've kind of brought to these private sector businesses and organizations, is that Homeland Security looks at everything from an all hazards perspective. Of it's not supposed to be reactionary. You are supposed to plan for any possible hazard. Yep. So in Homeland Security's strategic plan, dating all the way back to 2007, when the first comprehensive plan came out, it said to prepare the nation for natural disasters, terrorism, and pandemic threats. So
it's been in there, but were you actually trained in pandemic threats? And was it, what I'm trying to get at, Nick, was it part of the course curriculum to the level it should have been prior to this pandemic? Or did they shift curriculum because maybe it wasn't covered enough in the pre-pandemic curriculum?
not nearly covered enough. And, I've read through a lot of the state plans as well and how they're preparing for it. And this was not touched on. This was not a concern prior to this. They would put in that, beautiful mission statement, they would say end pandemics. And that was basically the end of the conversation. There was no, there were small programs that basically never got any traction to biosecure the country, to implement bio-threat detection sensors and all these ideas. And they never really went beyond an idea. They were kind of failed low-end technologies. And Homeland Security was not prioritizing this. This was not on the nation's radar. They were underfunding anything like this because they didn't see it as, a feasible threat. And the federal government wasn't looking at it that way. And neither was any other level of government. And the private sector, I think, definitely wasn't prepared for this.
Yeah, but yet this could have been, not that I'm saying COVID was, because I don't believe it is. And I'm not a conspiracy nuts at all. But the fact of the matter is, there could be a manufactured biological threat that we have to deal with too. So in today's world, pandemic is a real possibility, whether it be man-made or whether it be natural. So you'd
Absolutely.
think it would be much higher on their priorities list. It actually, shocks me a little bit. And I'm one who took political science in college, Nick. So
I did too, actually.
Oh, so you know what I mean.
Is
They should have contingency programs for every possible eventuality. And that's their job,
Exactly.
is to have contingency programs in place. And every president and every government agency should have that. And the reason why those contingency plans exist is if a problem happens, they don't have to stop and figure it out then. They have already figured it out, so they can act rather than ponder when the disaster hits. And if we don't have contingency plans and actionable plans, then we pause and we freak out. And that's sort of what we saw in the beginning of this, don't you think?
Absolutely. And, even looking at it state by state and how some states were better prepared than others, one of the things I noticed was that none of the states really were ever prioritizing pandemics, but a few of them were prioritizing disaster response and mass casualty situations. So Florida actually has the most robust emergency management program in the United States because they're always, they get hit by a hurricane or a tropical storm. And they basically just immediately reconfigured this to another mass casualty event. They weren't prepared specifically for a pandemic, but they had the infrastructure already in place, and they were a little quicker to adapt it. And honestly, it's very scary to me that New York wasn't able to turn around and adapt to a mass casualty situation. New York should be better prepared than anybody.
You'd think, and when you looked at the statistics in Florida compared to New York, wow. I mean, it really showed how much better Florida did do in reacting to it, at least. And New York was I mean, look, I don't want to get into the details, but there were a lot of mistakes, particularly made in New York. I'm talking to you from Las Vegas now, Nick, and here in Las Vegas, of course, we had our shutdown in the state for, I guess it was 6 or 7 weeks, Corey? Our shutdown, something like that. And so I'm sitting home now in about my 88th day or something like that, Nick. But Vegas opened on Thursday. And I think you'll find this interesting. I'm close with many of the executives that run these casino companies. In the average casino, they have implemented 800 policy changes all around COVID. Wow. From taking your temperature on the way through the front door to the way check-in is handled to elevators to upstairs to back of the house procedures, front of the house procedures. And they've gone all of these steps, to try to assure safety. But what I find interesting, Nick, and I'd be curious to hear your comments on this, and I've been saying this on some of the news channels this week. Let's say a restaurant puts everything in place perfectly. Nick, they hire your company. Let's say you come in, you do a complete assessment. They're doing everything right, from sanitizing to environmental to employee behavior, employee sanitation practices. They're freaking nailing it, buddy. But standing in front of that restaurant is a crowd of about 6 or 7 or maybe 8 people waiting to get in, and none of them are wearing masks, and are all standing right next to each other talking. Are you going to go in that restaurant?
You're absolutely right. I'm not going to go in that restaurant because this can't all be policy changes. This can't all be procedures and new tactics. This is an effort on behalf of every individual. If every individual is not doing the right thing, and even if it's just in front of your business and they're not even in your business, it's going to turn people away.
That's what I think. So what I worry about is the businesses can do it all right, Nick, right? They do, and then the customer behavior makes them do it wrong. So I was talking to one of the news channels the other day, and I was realizing I was actually talking to Bar Business Magazine. And in the interview, I was talking about the fact that bar and restaurant owners need to make a decision. Now, the population is going to come back, and I've said this a number of times on this podcast, so I don't want to get into it again, but the population is going to come back in thirds. One third comes back quickly, another third waits a couple weeks to see what happens, and then the third doesn't come out at all until they know that they're safe. Now, that third tends to have more disposable income. They tend to be a little wealthier. They tend to be a little older. So the initial wave out is going to be a little more value-oriented, if you will, more of the younger, fearless kind of crowd. Right? Maybe in your age group, Nick. So my point is this. My point is this. Let's say I operate a bar, and I choose to say, masks are optional. And now I got those 8 people standing in front of my bar without masks on. I could be screwed as a business owner. Let's say I say, nope, masks are required. Everybody, when you come in the front door, sorry, you got to wear a mask here unless you're actually eating or drinking. And now there's some young people who are going to say to me, I'm not going there. They make you wear a mask. If I do nothing, I'm screwed both ways. People who are okay with no masks are not going to like everybody in masks, and vice versa. And I was equating this, and I'm curious to hear your comment on this, Nick, when I'm finished. I was equating it to a music choice. Now, let's say you and I were opening a bar together, Nick, and we choose to put in a country music program in Long Beach, California. Long Beach, Long Island. Now, that means all of the rock people are not coming, right? We have completely segmented the market by choosing country music. You with me? Now, if you and I did the same thing and put rock music in or hip-hop music in, we're now chasing away the country fans. So in the bar and restaurant business, when we pick product and we pick price and we pick music and we pick logo and we pick positioning, we are segmenting the market. That's what we do. So when we build a restaurant, we choose, this is who we're building it for. So here's my question to you. Does a bar or restaurant today have to make a die-hard policy that you're going to wear masks in here or you're not going to wear masks in here? And does that policy relate to demographics or age of their audience? A younger audience, probably I can let the mask thing go. An older audience, I probably got to put it in place. Do you think they have to make that choice now, or can they let the customers do it?
In general, I am all for letting people make their own decisions, and that if you don't feel safe in the establishment, then, you're not going to go to it. But that exact issue is something that a lot of business owners have been asking me. They've been asking me, do I require people to have their temperature taken on the way in? Do I require people to wear a mask on the way in? And I've been telling them that you're going to lose a portion of your market that may come later on if you're not doing this now.
Right.
Just to meet the guidelines, a lot of them have to make that die-hard decision of this is the way it's going to be. I think it depends on the area. I think it depends on the demographic and who's going to the facility. The beach clubs I work with are an entire different environment than the bars I go to. The bars I go to, they're like, look, these are local people. They're not going to want to come in wearing a mask. The beach clubs are all out-of-town people, and they're like, if everyone's not wearing a mask, then we're going to lose a lot of membership.
Yeah.
There needs to be a safe option. There needs to be a middle ground. But I think it's very dependent on the demographic that you're getting to your business. I think for some businesses, you're going to need to have a hard line, and you're going to need security there, honestly, enforcing it and saying, listen, please put on your mask. It's a policy of our facility. And then there's going to be the other places where that is a local dive bar. Everybody going in, and if you tell them all they have to wear a mask in there, they're not going to come back. It's a really bad situation that these business owners are in, because there's not really a winning scenario.
No, you're damned if you do, you're damned if you don't. It's interesting what you just said, because that was the next place I was going to go. And by the way, you're a great guest, Nick. So
John,
what's
thank
interesting?
you so much for having me. This is amazing.
Oh no, my pleasure. So what's interesting, if you say, okay, so I'm gonna have that younger demographic. It's a young bar, it's a beach bar. Let them go crazy. If you have regular customers, then they're going to object to you making them wear a mask. I get that. But if you need new customers to come in all the time because you're a tourism bar, et cetera, then images on social media and out in public are everything. So
yes.
I would propose to that tourist-oriented venue, what image do you want to project? The image of danger or the image of safety? And that's a tough question, boy. I think I would err on safety, because if I have images of people acting unsafe and somebody gets contracts it in my venue, I could be finished. But if I had a choice, if you back me in a corner, buddy, I think I'd have to err with safety, but I wouldn't be happy about it.
Absolutely. And that's kind of the way I've been phrasing it to not just the bars and restaurants, but to every organization I'm with, that this is an opportunity for you to draw in a new market by, hitting a new standard and saying, look, our facility is secured. We made everything. We did everything right. We have some procedures that you may not necessarily like, but we are safe. And I started working with a school the other day even, and this school has a very low enrollment. And I told them, look, I said, you may see an initial decline, but when, the public schools aren't doing the right thing and other private schools aren't doing the right thing, and you have this, beautiful standard set, and that people see the image of you doing the right thing, or same with a camp, with a bar, with a restaurant, whatever it is, when people see that standard, I think they're going to draw in new markets. And I've already been seeing that. With some of the clubs that I've worked with. These are clubs that have never been sold out before with memberships. And within the first 2 weeks, all of them have waiting lists now. Clubs that never had a waiting list before now have a waiting list. And it's really, really interesting to see that dynamic start to play out.
Well, I think today that safety is a top on the list. I'll go where they have my second favorite pizza if it's a safer kind of environment. So, I think that when we take a look at these brands today, it's hard to close your eyes and picture a restaurant brand that's known for cleanliness. But 6 months from now, a year from now, Nick, there's going to be, all of them are going to be clamoring to be known for cleanliness. So, I think that as an industry, I'm with you, buddy. We got to put all the policies and procedures in place. We have to build brand equity around safety today. I don't think this goes away so quickly. Do you, Nick?
No, I don't see it going anywhere. And I think some of these are going to, you've said it on here a few times, that these are going to be policies that are carried forward even after this thing, even after there's a vaccine. Yeah. People are going to want to be known as the cleanest bar, the cleanest restaurant, the cleanest school, whatever it is.
Yep. So, Nick, do you mind some listeners asking you some questions online?
No, I would love it.
So why don't you give me an address where people can find you? And maybe you can pick up some business, or I'm sure if somebody asks you a question or two, you'd be happy to answer it for them.
Absolutely. I would love that.
Great. So where is an address where people can find you?
Email address?
Yeah, whatever you like. And if you don't want to give it, that's okay. Don't give it. I'm just trying to give you an opportunity, buddy, whatever you like.
Or social media would work
thank
too.
You so,
or social media
so
handle?
Yes.
A social media handle would be fine?
So on Facebook, I'm Parada Consulting, LLC. So Parada is Perrrotta, Consulting, LLC. My email is Parada, so Perrrotta, E2020 @gmail.com.
Excellent, Nick. Well, this was a great talk, buddy. I wish you a lot of success in your business. I hope doing this for you now gets you a little jolt of business. I think you're doing important work, buddy, and I think your attitude is freaking terrific.
That's awesome. John, seriously, I can't thank you enough for having me on. I've followed you forever, so thank you so much for having me on here. And I love helping these businesses. I love seeing, the face of people when I put a plan in front of them and I can say, you can do this. You can move on. You can be prepared for the future. So thank you so much for the opportunity.
I think we can, buddy. I'm with you. Take care, Nick.
Thank you, John.
It's interesting, Corey. I was talking last week, maybe even the week before, about how great marketers and promoters and operators are going to bubble to the top in this. And it's almost like when a forest burns down and those little sprigs pop up. Well, there was one. Nick is one of those people. Think about this. He's earned a master's degree in something that's very important. Even before he's finished with school, he puts 1,000 hours into a thesis, becomes an unbelievable expert on a topic at a young age. And what happens, Corey? He bubbles to the top.
Hearing Nick and having that conversation with him really renewed my confidence in the whole direction of Homeland Security and emergency management. And if he's the kind of guy who's going to be making sure we're safe going forward, it makes me feel a hell of a lot better. The next conversation I had that was really interesting to me was with a guy by the name of Jon. And Jon is an alcoholic beverage control board investigator. And Jon had some really interesting perspectives on the shutdown in the beverage industry and how important pivoting to a new normal is going to be to success. Jon, too, had some motivating and inspiring things, and I really enjoyed talking to him. Give a listen.
How are you, Jon?
Hey, John. Doing well.
Good. Where are you, buddy? What city are you in?
I am in Washington, D.C.
So you live in Washington proper. Okay. It's funny. Years ago, I used to own a bunch of bartending schools called Bartenders Academy in Washington. We had a school on K Street and one in Alexandria. And I lived in D.C. for years. This is years ago. Man, what a great city to live in. Of course, not at the moment. But,
Yeah.
But what a great city to live in. So hats off to you, John. So you're an ABC board investigator?
Yes, I am.
So tell us what that is.
So I work for the local liquor authority, and we investigate violations and also monitor for compliance to DC code and the board's orders and regulations.
So just so everybody knows, different states have different terms for what an ABC is. Of course, alcoholic beverage control, but what you do is a very important function, and you make certain that bars and facilities that have licenses to sell alcohol meet the compliance and regulatory requirements of not serving the minors, not over-serving, not refilling bottles. I'm just giving the big ones, obviously, John, and other compliance issues.
Yep, all correct.
Get from wholesalers, don't buy product from retailers, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And it's a very important function. Not only do you keep us safe, but you keep the playing field even and honest, which is important. So the bad guys don't have advantages over the good guys, right? Which would be so.
Correct.
That's a very important function, and some people don't look at what you do as that. But you're the great equalizer. You make sure everybody plays by the same rules in the same situation. So you've been going through hell with COVID from a professional standpoint, I would think.
Yes, absolutely. From day one when we did the shutdown, enforcing the shutdown, to up until now where there's partial occupancy, no live entertainment, and really ensuring that even playing field, because the margins are, they're so tight.
Yeah.
And everyone is just chasing the same dollar.
Yeah. John, just personally, a question to ask is going through this, I've seen my peers, my bar operators, and some of these people. I'm sure you can close your eyes and picture their faces. They're doing everything right. They're fighting for their lives. And it's I've got to believe it's so hard for you to watch, particularly the good operators that who are really have integrity and are trying. Does your heart get broken out there these days?
It does. I've certainly come across owners who've openly wept in front of me because they're unable to really understand the new operating environment and to pivot. There's life pre-COVID and life during COVID. Yeah. And if you were X before, you really need to retool. And the ones that are successful are pivoting, retooling. They know their numbers.
Yep.
They know how much revenue they need to generate. And the ones that can't are just awash in stressors.
Yeah.
And are often make bad decisions.
Yeah. So we were talking today on my podcast about how COVID has affected professional and personal relationships. So you don't get to meet your coworkers. You guys don't have meetings anymore. So obviously your professional life is very different than it used to be. I got to believe, right?
Right. It's all Zoom meetings.
Yep.
There's a lot of interagency, health department, the building guys, the fire marshals. So working with agencies you might not have worked with before, increase in complaints from private citizens, competitors, perhaps giving bad information.
So I'm just trying to picture your life, John. So here you are in Washington. You certainly sound like a good guy to me. You sound like, somebody who cares about the work and everything that you do. So now you see this industry that you love, that you're a part of, falling apart. You're getting slammed with new loads of work, new things to learn, new standards, new procedures, new policies every day. So I'm guessing work has you sort of stressed. I'm guessing, right?
Yep.
So
yep.
How is this affecting your personal life?
Well, it's put a great strain. I'm going through a breakup, and I think part of that was the stressors of work, of life. The person I was with, went through a layoff, and what I think was important for us was to realize it's better for us to break up as friends than try to make something work and become enemies.
Yeah.
So though it didn't work out as a relationship, I gained a friend, an ally, that I could still network, lean on. It just didn't work out,
Yeah.
romantically.
You still care for each other, but it's an interesting point that you make. You still care for each other. That's the logical side of your brain, right? You still care for each other. You want each other to be successful. You want to be supportive of each other. All that stuff is in place. But, when you get to the intimacy side of the fence, which is the emotional side of the fence, these external factors mean a lot. Certainly, these pressures affect desires for intimacy. It causes people sometimes to pull inside with you, if you will, so we don't express ourselves as well. There's an inherent sadness that can live in some of us when it comes to the emotional side of who we are right now. So did the two of you talk about that, the fact that, COVID is having this huge impact on you that might otherwise not be causing these things to happen? Did you have that discussion?
We did. That it just kind of, I think, expedited things.
Yeah.
And I think it was the communication that led us to realize that, this isn't working.
Yeah.
But maybe it can work a different way.
Yeah.
And we both can part and find something else.
So you're the kind of guy who you're going to find the good in a situation. Because that's inherently what you're doing.
I'm going to try.
And it seems
I'm
to
going
me,
to try.
Yeah, it seems to me at work you're doing the same thing. You're taking an approach of, okay, I've got to make a difference. This is a chance for me to help these people get through this, et cetera. So, there's a story and there's a moral to this, John. And hats off to you, buddy. When you can look at a situation like this and so many people can say, this glass isn't half empty. This glass is freaking empty right now. Not even half full. But you're finding that glass can be filled. And you're looking at things in an extremely positive way. And, your attitude, I think, is a great example for all of us, buddy. So good luck in these struggles and stay safe, okay?
Hey, thanks, man. Appreciate it.
My pleasure. Take care, John. All right, I'm going to take a whole left turn on you. So we've spoken to our emergency management. We've spoken to alcoholic beverage control. I wanted to talk to a teacher for a long time. Think about this. Schools are reopening. We're terrified. Teachers, a lot of them are older, in a higher risk category, and they're going to have to go to school and sit in a room with 30, 40, 50, 60, God knows how many kids, and interact with them in cafeterias and study halls and bus platforms and all the areas where contact happens with children. And it's pretty hard to do it all from 6 feet away. So a school teacher has some big decisions to make. Am I going to risk my own family to go back to school, or am I going to stand out until COVID is done? Well, Hannah gave me a call, and Hannah is a preschool teacher. And she is really incredibly concerned about everything going on. But she gave me such confidence in the processes and procedures that they're all taking to keep us safe. So Hannah really gave me the confidence, because my grandson goes to daycare. After talking to Hannah, I felt much better.
Hello?
Hannah, Jon Taffer here.
Holy shit, this is great.
How are you?
Hello?
Hi, Jon Taffer here. How are you, Hannah?
I'm good. How are you?
You're doing good. You got a couple of minutes?
Yeah, I do.
Where are you in Ohio?
Toledo, so right on the border of Ohio and Michigan.
Sure, I know Toledo well. I used to actually spend a lot of time in Ohio years ago, and it's a great state. So you're a preschool teacher, and I find it interesting because we've been talking today in the podcast about distance learning and all my fears about distance learning and lack of socialization and connection. And I'm a little concerned that we as a country are so quick to throw away in-classroom learning and allow digital and distance learning to sort of take over. And I've been asking my listeners, and I'd love to ask you this question and talk about it for a moment, Hannah. If you had a choice of saying, okay, let's let social distancing and distant learning take over, and let's allow the digital world to develop our education in the future, or would you say, no, I'm fighting for the classroom. I don't believe that should happen. I don't believe that's progress. We need to keep kids in the classroom. Which two sides of that do you fall down on being a preschool teacher?
Definitely no. A lot of my students, they're 3 and they're 4, some 5-year-olds. They don't know how to process emotions, let alone how could we expect them to work a computer or learn through a computer. And when we have our morning circle time, they can't, I have I call them their listening circles, where they have to sit on, and I say it charges up the rest of the day so that they can pay attention. I would never even fathom being able to teach preschool through a computer, especially for those who are on like IEPs or they have, a learning disability or something like that. I don't think it's feasible.
Yeah, it's interesting. I have a 1-year-old grandson, and he's in preschool, and he just went from the infant room to the 1-year room, right? Big deal, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Traumatic change for this little guy.
Yeah.
And some kid bit his arm. Not too bad, but bit his arm the other day. So now a kid takes a toy away from him a couple of days later, and now he bites the kid's arm because he learned it from the other kid. So now there's this issue where a child has to learn parameters, and they have to learn what they're allowed to do and what they're not allowed to do. And it's society who teaches us those things. It's funny, Hannah, I look at my dog, and I have a new rescue dog who's been with us for about 6 months. And when he came into the house, he couldn't figure out anything. And he kept breaking all the rules. But my other dog straightened them out pretty quick.
Yeah.
And I think that society has a way of developing us and protecting us, nurturing and growing us. And I think we take that away when the kids aren't together. So I agree with you completely. So how is your situation at preschool now? Are all the students coming? Are you guys open?
Yes, we are open. We definitely, preschoolers do not have to wear masks per Ohio's current ordinance.
The kids don't?
No.
Right.
So, like, they have an after-school program for, like, school-age kids. They have to wear masks, but the younger ones do not. We have to wear masks at all times.
Yeah, and then you have you have serious sanitation rules. You're cleaning everything and wiping everything all the time.
Oh, yeah, we're cleaning everything. We have, it's called a Zona machine that we write down all of the toys that were used that day, and they get run through the Zono, and it's like a giant sanitation machine.
Wow.
We have spray that we spray on all surfaces. They don't share crayons. They have their own pack of crayons. Wow. They cannot bring anything in from home. So they used to be able to bring like backpacks, and they used to be able to like bring in their own toys and their own blankets and stuff for nap time, but they cannot bring anything in from home anymore. We provide everything.
So who helped your school put these programs in place? Because you have a private preschool, I'm guessing, right? That you work for?
Yeah, it's a private preschool.
And they only own that one school?
Yeah.
So they're not a big chain operation or nothing like that. Who helped them put all these programs in place? Do you know?
The local health department.
So they did. So the local health department was a resource for your school to provide these systems and procedures and such. That's good to hear.
Yeah.
So have you found the state was really supportive during this process?
Kind of. With how much they're kind of changing everything, it can be hard to keep up, especially since obviously whenever the governor does a press conference where he discusses schools and daycares and things like that, we don't find out anything beforehand, obviously. And, we'll have parents come in at pickup time and they'll be asking us 100 questions over what just happened, and we haven't even read the press report, or we haven't even received anything yet.
It's going
from,
so quickly.
So it's really, we'll get bombarded.
I'll tell you, though, it's interesting one, I live in Nevada, I live in Las Vegas, so I'm not involved in Ohio politics per se, and I don't know very much about it. But I've seen your governor a few times on national news, and I don't even know if he's a Democrat or Republican, to be honest with you, but I liked him a lot. He did some videos from his living room in his home. He seemed warm. He seemed very caring. I liked him very much as far as he emulated a feeling of trust in me. Is he popular in Ohio?
Yeah, he is. This is his first term as governor, and I really think that obviously no one wishes COVID happened, but I think he really showed most of Ohio that he's fully capable of handling major issues like this and taking care of things. Because Ohio really kind of led the way for a lot of shutdowns and procedures and ordinances and things like that.
Yeah. You know, it's interesting. I gave a speech at GOPAC, a political convention last week, and I was talking about how this has changed so much because the science has changed so much, and we knew so little. You know, yes to this, no to this, no to that, yes to this. I mean, it kept changing and changing. But it seems to me now that the science has leveled out and you know what procedures you're doing. So I want to ask you a really important question for our listeners. If I had a 3-year-old, or if you had a 3-year-old, your 3-year-old little boy, the joy of your life, would you send him to preschool today?
Yeah.
You would? So,
because I see what we're doing firsthand, and I always put the safety and the health of my students before, and we're doing everything that we possibly can to keep our kids safe and to keep them healthy. And not only that, but to make sure that they're catching up on everything that they might have missed and learning a lot more.
Yeah, that's great to hear from you, Hannah, and it's great for our listeners to hear this. And this is my belief. Now, a larger school, a high school, we're talking a whole different animal here, right, with hundreds of kids in it and stuff. But the fact of the matter is your environment is safe. Preschools are safe across America, and I know this from other preschool operators I've spoken with. So you put our mind at ease, and you and I agree completely. Let's keep the classroom going. Let's not move these kids to computers.
Definitely.
Thanks, Hannah. Nice to talk to you. Take care. Stay safe.
Thank you. You as well.
Bye-bye. Hannah, thank you. You know, that view is powerful. You know, you think teachers want to get out of the classroom and get into digital. They don't. They want to interact with their children. And here is obviously a teacher in Hannah who loves the kids, wants to interact with them, wants to watch them grow and learn. And we don't want that to disappear.
All righty, so we've covered school, alcoholic beverage control, emergency management, but I am Taffer. This show would be nothing if we didn't talk to a bartender. So Anthony called me to ask for advice because the owner of the bar he currently works for is putting cheap well liquor into his brand name bottles. So he called me to ask me what to do, and I wound up turning it around on him completely, actually, because the owner was doing it, but he was actually allowing it. And it speaks a lot to personal accountability. Anthony's a good guy, but I sort of called him out. Give a listen.
Hello.
Anthony.
Yes.
Jon Taffer here. What do you want to talk about?
Okay. I'm a bartender part-time. I'm actually a social worker. That's my main job. And on the weekend, I do bartend in the Port Jefferson area.
Mm-hmm. Know it well.
I'd rather not say which bar. Well,
that's okay.
I don't want to get myself in trouble, but there is an issue. And I think I've seen this on one of your episodes, maybe once or twice, where not the owner but the manager, the owner's not aware. They're kind of playing around with the top shelf booze. For example, I think I mentioned this, maybe a bottle of, help me out here, Grey Goose.
Mm-hmm.
If it's half full, they might pour, the craft and below in it and mix it, which is illegal, but the customers notice. But what they do is, and some other bartenders are in on this, they only give it to the customers that have had a few drinks. So once you have a little bit of a buzz, I guess you're less likely to know you're not getting what you're paying for.
Yeah, the other trick is they put it in mixed drinks, but not things like martinis where you can really taste the difference.
Yeah, well, yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
So if you come in off the street, you order a cheeseburger and a cranberry and vodka with Grey Goose, they're not going to give that to you because you're going to pick up on it, especially people that drink it on a regular basis. So
the fact is that's outright illegal, and there was a bar rescue episode I did. I think it was in St. Louis. I forget where. And Tanqueray gin is, I believe, I'm looking at a bottle right now. Let's see, I believe it's 86 proof, and it is. And bar gin is 80 proof. So I traveled in bar rescue with a device called a hydrometer. And you put a hydrometer in a liquor bottle, and it tells you exactly what the proof of the liquor is. So I picked up a Tanqueray bottle in this bar, dropped the hydrometer in the bottle, and it came up as 80 proof, not 86 proof. So I knew instantly it was not Tanqueray gin. It was bar gin. So it's so easy to prove using a hydrometer, which is a simple device. You can check proof on it. And, of course, flavor. But here's the point. The point is this. A restaurant like that can't possibly succeed. They will eventually lose customers. Customers know the difference. Employees know that they're working in a legal operation. It's very difficult to have pride in that kind of a situation. So, I think whoever does that is not only a criminal, because it's blatantly illegal at the moment that they do it, but they're also an idiot, candidly. And there's one little trick that I found that you can always find.
Mm-hmm.
Whenever bars do this, you'll find that the liquor bottle labels are worn out because the bottle's been pulled up and down. It's been used so much because it's been refilled, and refilled. So when you go into this bar next time you're there, look for old liquor bottles that looks like they've sort of been overused for the amount of ounces that are in them. And you'll find those are the bottles that are being refilled.
That's interesting. The owner is hands off because of an illness. I feel bad for him. He's a good guy. He doesn't know, but
why wouldn't you call?
He's been having...
Why wouldn't you call him and tell him?
Oh God, this is
Let me ask you a question. I'm going to be bar rescue here for a moment. You sound like a really good guy to me. This is a guy who owns this business. Did he put his life savings into it?
Well, he's got a lot of money, but he earned what he has. Let me put it that way.
Okay, so his family is invested in this. This is his business, and these are his employees. And if you know this and allow his business interests to be lost and go down the tubes and don't say something to him, then how dare you say to me he's a good guy? Because you're sticking it. Because you're sticking it.
In a way I know, so I'm culpable because I know.
Well, you're sticking it then to a guy who you know is a good guy. You feel okay about that? Do you?
No.
Because I wouldn't. So I think what you need to do is you're only culpable if you keep it to yourself. If you don't keep it to yourself, you're not culpable. You're loyal. And I think, I've had this with employees in the past. I've looked at employees and said, okay, it's time for you to choose. You're going to be loyal to the employees that are causing trouble, or you're going to be loyal to me. Which of the two that you want to be loyal to? So I ask you this question, and I'm beating you up here, I know it, but you got it coming. What do you want to define you as a person? The guy who backs him up or the guy who doesn't?
The owner deserves my loyalty.
Okay, so now say goodbye, John.
There's no question about it.
It raises an interesting point listening to Anthony. If you worked for someone who was ripping customers off in some way and you knew it, would you tell? What if you really needed your job? Would you tell? What if it exposed, some financial disaster for you? Would you tell? It's interesting. And at what point in your life does integrity fall? Is it number one before money? Is it number two after money? Is it number three after money and something else? Is it number four, number five, number six? I often wonder that integrity ranking is sort of slipping these days a little bit, especially when you watch television and the pundits and the politicians, and half of what they say isn't true. That's not exactly integrity. So Anthony did not have the courage. He had the integrity to know it was wrong. He had the integrity and courage to call me, but he didn't have the courage to act. And that is where we're all at today as a nation. If you believe in something, act. Say it. Stand up for it. Don't hold back on it. And that's my new book, by the way, The Pursuit of Conflict, which we're working on right now, and you should see pretty soon in the marketplace. But it's all about how do you engage in conflict and still be respectful with people. Anthony, in a way, gave up his integrity because he didn't have the courage to step up and do something right. And that's not something any of us really want to do. Well, this was fun this week. Next week is going to be unbelievable for me. We really start opening Taffer's Tavern. We fire up all the kitchen equipment, and it's really exciting. So watch social media. We're going to be posting a lot of images and pictures and inviting a lot of people in for some free meals the next couple of weeks as we train our staff, too. So keep an eye on our social media feeds. Also, you're going to see we'll be launching the Taffer's Tavern website, which I am really proud of. It's I think, one of the coolest restaurant websites you'll ever see anywhere. So we're really excited about that. And again, watch social media. That's going to launch next week. Georgia, Taffer Seltzer's coming, so keep an eye out in your stores the next couple of weeks. And you all know how much I love talking to you. So you want to talk to me? Give me a call at 916-842-5180. 916-842-5180. Either Corey will answer, leave a message. We do call you back, and we'll try to get you on the podcast. I'd love to talk to you. You can also reach me at podcast@jontaffer.com. Podcast@jontaffer.com. Don't forget to subscribe. Don't forget to tell your friends. And don't forget, I'll be back next week. Take care.
Do you want to see more of this podcast? Then hit subscribe right now. No excuses.